Welcome, everybody, to Hot Takes on the Lake. I'm Josh, joined here by your host, Nick. We are two lifelong Cleveland Browns fans, and today we're going to be recapping the Browns' slaughter that just occurred against the Miami Dolphins. We're also going to be previewing the upcoming game against the Bills this Sunday, which might be another one of those situations. But we're gonna jump into it, dive into everything. If it's your first time here, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast platform, make sure to subscribe so you can join us for all of our Browns coverage this year, as well as some live streams of games we have coming up later in the season once Deshaun Watson starts for the Browns. So subscribe, stay tuned for that. But Nick, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been on because of the bye week. We took the bye week as well. And I'll just quickly mention the Browns did beat the Bengals in that game on Halloween. I don't know if you watched it because it was on Halloween or what you thought of that game, but just quick thoughts on that Browns win going into the bye.
I did watch it. I initially had said that, yeah, if the game got ugly early, I would obviously turn on a nice Halloween movie and enjoy my favorite holiday. But luckily, the Browns really just kind of did what they've been doing the last 8 or 9 games, just take care of the Bengals. For whatever reason, we just seem to have their number. So yeah, I was really impressed by that, and then that just all went to shit this past Sunday. So
Yeah.
it was just a typical Browns performance.
Yeah, I think we are still yet to have back-to-back wins this year. But that win was nice. It was nice to see, nice to happen on Halloween. Probably won't be playing on Halloween again for many years, presumably. So that was cool to see. But yeah, going into the bye on that win, and then we come back and we didn't preview the game, but I didn't really think we had much of a chance here. I thought maybe we get up early, we stay competitive, we can win. But once we got down, 17-7 going into the half, I was like, okay, this is looking like it's already out of reach. And in typical Browns fashion, opening drive, we get the ball first, march right down and score a touchdown, and then do absolutely nothing the rest of the half and essentially the rest of the game. But really, that first half after our first drive was just brutal offensively. So what were your thoughts? First seeing a score on that first drive and take the lead, and then just kind of the wheels falling off after that.
Well, first of all, now that he's off of the IR, I think Jerome Ford should be the main kick returner and punt returner. He started off with a nice return, get us in decent field position, and he seems to just be able to make a play out there when he's on special teams. So that was nice to see just starting off. But yeah, like you said, I mean, obviously the first drive or two are usually scripted, and yeah, usually we just script it, pretty much, you know, perfectly. They usually end up going. We at least get, at least a good drive. And this, we went right down the field, like you said, got a touchdown to Harrison Bryant, and yeah, especially Brissett was just, stepping up in the pocket, really just, firing the ball over the field, being accurate, which was nice to see. And it gave me a lot of hope. But, like I said, that was probably the best thing that happened for the rest of the game, even though it was kind of a slow start. And even 17-10 at halftime, it's not an insurmountable lead, but still, you were still in this game. But just after that first drive, there was just pretty much nothing else you could really hang your head on for the rest of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that forward return really did set up. It was only a four-play drive because we started
Mhm.
essentially midfield, and then first play of the game, that bomb, I believe it was, let's see here, 38 yards to Donovan Peoples Jones. Great catch by him. Not a great throw by Brissett, a good throw, but underthrew him a little bit. But I mean, hey, he got the ball there, he caught it, so it was a good play. You hit him in stride, that's a touchdown, but we scored anyway, so not going to blame him too much. And even the pass blocking in there was great too. He had forever on that play. And I'm a fan of the first play of the game play action. I don't think you do it every game, obviously, but I think you're a team that establishes you run on first down. Hitting that play action for the first play of the game, I think, can work occasionally, and it did pay off there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when obviously people know that you have, the best running back in the league, they're going to expect you, even though we complain every week that the Browns don't run the ball enough or in the right situations. You still have to account for Nick Chubb first and foremost. So I think, yeah, starting off with that, with the play action, really get the defense off balance and confused out there. It was a good way to go. Um, but yeah, again, Brissett was under a lot of pressure early on. But again, he got sacked. I think it was Bradley Chubb he got, and Christian Wilkins. He got sacked on, but then the very next play is when he was pretty much under pressure almost right away and just stepped up in the pocket and delivered a bullet for a first down. So, um, yeah, that's the thing with Brissett. I mean, he hasn't been great at times, but then other times he does that. He takes care of the ball. Just doesn't take the sack or kind of panic back there. And we've even seen him get out of the pocket and use his legs too. So early on, it seemed like he was kind of evading that pass rush. Obviously with Bradley Chubb, and they just re-signed him. A great young pass rusher and really taking pressure off of that secondary in Miami. So. Yeah, and the offensive line was fine early, and again, I missed most of the game. I was able to watch at least the first quarter, maybe the first few minutes of the second quarter. But again, it seemed like from what I read and just saw that the offensive line kind of, you know, they played well early, but they really just got bullied the rest of the game. It sounds like.
I mean, offensively, it was basically everyone that did that. I mean, we had that good first drive. We come back out. Second drive is very good. 12 plays. We're marching in the field. Had the ball for 6 minutes. One play on third and long. Brissett has a great 20-plus yard pass again to Donovan Peoples-Jones to get a first down. Everything's going good. And then Nick Chubb fumbles the ball. I think someone said it was his first fumble of the season. Look, I'm not going to sit here and crucify the guy. He's the best running back in the league, in my opinion. I think most people have him at least top 3 excuse me, this year. So I'm not going to be super mad at him. It happens. But it's a bummer that, we were having a good drive there, and then that happens. Dolphins answer with a field goal. And then from that point on, Browns just really couldn't do anything. Turnover on downs the next drive, 3 and out the drive after that. And then we get to the dreaded double dip. It's halftime, but the Dolphins get the ball and score. Touchdown right before half. Come out from half, score a touchdown again. And you actually just brought this up, I think, in our last episode. This seems to always happen to the Browns because our defense just cannot hold up. And I think that's what really killed us here because we go from being down 7-10. By the time we get the ball in the second half, it's 10-24. Or I'm sorry, 7-24.
Yeah, it seems to always happen that way. That whenever we have the opportunity to kind of double dip and score right before halftime and get the ball back in the second half and go down and score again and get 2 scores in a row, we can never seem to do that. But the other team, of course, they just are able to score 2 touchdowns like that. So it just seems like one of those things where, again, it's just the defense. Especially, it seems like it happens when there's not a lot of time on the clock and teams are running a 2-minute offense. It's just like the defense just can't get off the field, and they just give up, a touchdown right before half, and then again in the second half. It just seems to happen so many times with this defense, and it's just added to the laundry list of issues that's been going on. I mean, if you weren't on the Joe Woods, fire Joe Woods bandwagon now, I think you'd pretty much be alone because it was bad before, but now it's just grown to be, it's just an angry mob at this point. Again, you can't just read into what people say on Twitter and everything, but it's just like the problems are just not getting solved. And I'm tired of seeing, people like John Johnson and obviously Kevin Stefanski just coming out and say like, oh yeah, we know what the problems are. We gotta start executing. We gotta start, we gotta control the run, set the tone out there. It's like, okay, well then just do it. At least try. But it's like, the thing is, like, if you go out there and you get, demolished by a team that has more talent than you, then, fair enough. Okay, fine. A team's better than you. But it just seems like half the time there's just no effort, or at least half-assed effort at best. So it's just, I don't know. I think it just makes a lot of fans go, well, if they're not going to give a shit, then why do I? And then they're just going to tune out, especially since, we've been talking the last couple of weeks that the playoffs were completely shot. People might still be talking like, oh, mathematically we can still get in there, but I think people are just going to tune out. That it's just like, it's getting harder and harder to justify like, oh yeah, this team could still make the playoffs when they just don't have any effort, ever.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I think the playoffs have sailed at this point. I think in some crazy best case scenario where you win the next, I guess it would be 8 games. It would have to be left, and then it'd be 11-6. Even if that happens, I don't even know if you're winning the division at 11-6. I think you would have a shot because our division record is pretty decent, but the Ravens already have a win over us, so the best case scenario there is 1-1, and I think they're going to be the ones at the top of the division this year. So even if I were to somehow be kind of delusional and just think we're going to win out 8 games. Even then, it's like not really certain. So with that being said, when you look at the actual realistic situation of what's going to happen, you're probably going to lose more games than you win the rest of the season, at least until the very last few weeks, hopefully. I just don't see us being able to surmount enough wins, and I don't think this is the kind of year in the AFC that we're going to get into the playoffs at 8-9 or something like a team might be able to in the NFC, because they're so things are just different over there this year. But to not get too far ahead of ourselves though, you brought up the defense, so we can switch over to that, because was I disappointed in our offense? Yes, but we went into the game knowing that our defense was going to be challenged, and they did not live up to the challenge at all. I think it was probably their worst game of the year, worse than the Patriots game, worse than the Jets game even, where they gave up the 2 touchdowns at the end of the game. I think this is their worst performance. They did have 1 turnover on downs, but besides that one stand, the Dolphins were able to do whatever they wanted. And, credit to Tua, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, almost 300 yards. And then the biggest issue, as it's been all year and even in previous years, our run defense. They had 195 total rushing yards on us. You're just not going to win a game when you let the other team's quarterback have a great game and you let them run for almost 200 yards. There's really no way to come back from that. And because of that double dip scenario, our offense went into the second half with almost no hope. And even though they didn't play great, you still got to give them a little bit of credit. We continued to try, to score. We got a touchdown in there. We kept it somewhat like we could be in the game, but really there was no chance, because as soon as that second quarter really hit, as soon as the Dolphins got the ball, they were scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think not to take anything away from Tua, because he played great, but it's not like Waddle or Hill or even Gesicki, who's a good tight end, like had an outstanding game. Like they all did. We just had like 4 or 5 guys have like good performances, which is 4 receptions, 66 yards, 4 receptions, 63 yards, 4 receptions, 45 yards. Tyreek Hill, 5 receptions, 44 yards, and 3 of those guys had a touchdown. So you knew going into the game that obviously they have a lot of speed on the outside. And just with, obviously the broken coverages we've been seeing all year, that we knew that was going to be a problem. So you knew going into the game that, yes, they're going to want to throw the ball all over the field. But then Mike McDaniels, credit to him, he's just like, well, the Browns can't really stop a nosebleed when it comes to the running game. So even though we don't have like a legit number 1 back, you have a guy that, he knew in San Francisco, Jeff Wilson Jr., who comes out and drops 120 yards on you. And on 17 carries, and just basically just like you said, did whatever they wanted, ran down your throat, threw it when they needed to. Again, they didn't have to throw it all over the yard and score. They didn't have to score 40 points to beat us, but I mean, like you said, it was just kind of pick your poison. Whatever they wanted to do, they could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just an all-around loss, but I think that offensively, the story has been somewhat the same all year. You're limited with Brissett. And even when Brissett is playing above his usual quality, if we can't run the ball, we're not going to have a good offensive game. And we really couldn't run the ball. Nick Chubb had that great 33-yard touchdown run. That was just kind of a play that, we got one. It was a good play. But beyond that, you take that away, he had 10 carries for 30 yards, so it was not a good game. Even Kareem Hunt got the ball 6 times, 9 yards. So, and one of those was a 7-yard run. So really you're saying 2 yards on the other 5 carries. So, I mean, if we can't run the ball, especially with Brissett still in there, you're not going to have a great offensive game. But defensively, I think is really where it stuck out, as just, it has all year in a lot of games, but really this game was like, people were like, oh yeah, this is really not good. Even to the point where me, who's a defender of certain players like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and the more profile players that we have on our defense, even I'm getting to the point where it's like, we're just a bad defense. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter how many quote unquote good players you have that you're paying a lot of money. We are bad on defense. Like, we are a bad team on that half of the ball. And, that's not good. I don't know we'll talk a little bit more about Deshaun Watson and stuff in that regard, but I don't know what there is to fix that, because I am at this point also on the fire Joe Woods train. I don't think there's been any adjustment at all, and it's not like we don't have the talent or we don't have the players and it's Andrew Berry's fault. I mean, sure, we could get better on that defensive front, but we have what should be good players. We should not be this bad.
Yeah, and I would also be on that boat with you as far as Joe Woods is concerned. But again, like I think we both said last week or a couple weeks ago that I don't think it does any good to do it in the middle of the season. You might as well just
Yeah.
wait until the off season and do it then. Um, it's not like it's gonna turn a light switch and change overnight anyways. So you might as well just let him ride out the season and address that in the off season. Um, but yeah, as far as the defense goes, I don't know. I don't know what to think because I, all I've been told is that yeah, on paper this defense has so much talent, all over the field. Yeah, I mean not every position is elite, obviously, but and there are some holes on there. Still a defensive tackle and linebacker. We knew that going into the year, but we just kept hearing that yeah, this defense just has so much talent, so much potential, and it's either that's true and they're just not giving any effort, or we just don't have as much talent as we thought we did, and this defense needs to be not completely rebuilt, but mostly rebuilt from the bottom up. And truthfully, I don't know which one would be worse. Um, I still would like to think that there are talented guys in the defense, and again, it's just figuring out what the issue is. Is it really just Joe Woods and his defense is too complex? Is it that you don't have a guy out there um, that's a true like leader and can really get everybody on the same page, really inspire guys? I mean, like I said, John Johnson talks a great game, but there are plenty of plays I see him giving half-assed effort at best, or just completely blowing plays out there. So you need a guy out there who's going to back it up. Um, Again, I've just like you, I've been a defender of Miles Garrett for sure. On the flip side, yes, it does seem like he disappears a lot, and or he's just not out there. And you're like, oh, is he hurt? He's like, no, he's just on the sideline. I mean, granted, he's winded, he's playing his ass off, but it's just like you just need your guys to make more impact plays every once in a while. It just seems like our stars just disappear, or they're just not trying at all. I mean, it's like I said, there's so many problems with it. And like I said, between those two things, I don't know which one would be worse if we just don't have as much talent as we thought we did, or we do, and just for whatever reason, they're not putting forth the effort. Again, if they're waiting for Deshaun Watson, like okay, then we're gonna turn it up when he comes back. It's like okay, like so, explain the logic in that because then if you just get yourself out of playoff contention, you know, oh, you're going to play hard when Deshaun Watson comes back, but you still can't make the playoffs. It's like that doesn't make any sense. So it's like
Yeah.
I've heard people spitball that as a possible reason, but it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, you still have to keep yourself afloat if you're still trying to do that and make the playoffs, but now it's again it's not mathematically set in stone that we're not going to make the playoffs, but we're not making the playoffs. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
right now. So it doesn't matter what Deshaun Watson does when he comes back. So that would just be a completely asinine reason just to not give any effort out there.
Yeah. And I'll jump into more on that part of it with Deshaun and everything, but it's really interesting because it's like I was just looking through the stats here, and I mean, we are the second worst defense in the league when it comes to points per game allowed, 26.5 points per game. Only team worse than us is the Detroit Lions, who are at almost 30 points per game allowed. But then when you actually look at the stats, like, we're not great, but we're not bottom of the league when it comes to like first down percentage given up, third down percentage given up, overall first downs, anything like that. Like there's not some huge stat you can point to and just be like, wow, we're really bad. But then for some reason we're letting the other team score more than any other team in the league. So to me, I don't know what exactly the problem is, but just from the eye test and watching the games, I feel like for whatever reason we can just never seem to be able to get off the field on defense. And it's like our offense tries, we run the ball a lot, we do everything we can to kind of win the time of possession battle, but our defense just gives up so many long drives, 10 plus play drives while we're on defense, and it's not what you want to see. And I don't know how to stop that exactly. It's not like we're giving up a bunch of big plays like we were earlier in the season where that was kind of a problem. We've kind of cut that down, but now we just like can't get off the field. And I don't know if that's pressure, if that's purely just the run defense. I don't know. I don't know how to fix that.
Yeah, especially on third down, I have no confidence that we're going to go off the field, whether it's like 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 10. I just expect us to give it up. Um, again, yeah, it's just like, and it baffles me that we didn't have a better plan at defensive tackle too. Of all the positions, that was, pretty glaring our worst and weakest spot. Even the linebackers, okay, you had JOK, he's been banged up this year. Um, you had Anthony Walker, who hasn't been spectacular, but I mean, he's okay. I mean, he's still a solid veteran out there. But defensive tackle, it's just like they just had a bunch of third or later than third round picks. I think Togiai was maybe like a 5th or 6th round pick. You had Jordan Elliott out there, who was a later round pick. You had Perrion Winfrey, who you know slipped in the draft and was highly touted, but I mean, he got he was a healthy scratch yesterday because he violated team rules again, and he's just that's not the first time. And I think the first time Myles Garrett was the one who, like you said, he needs to really learn that we have to be professionals and stuff, and this isn't college anymore. So he's already having those types of issues. Not a good sign. Um, and again, we just figured that that would be the Achilles heel, and especially in the run defense, it just seems like they had no plan as far as like, oh, we have a bunch of talent out there. It won't be that bad, but it's like you said, it's that bad. Teams can just do whatever. We saw against Atlanta, who have a guy off the practice squad who can just have wide open lanes wherever they want. They can just run all over you. So that's really concerning. It seems like this organization, especially with how how much of brainiacs they are, and they're always trying to make like moves that are like 5 steps ahead and plan for the future. It just seems like that one they really missed, and they didn't really think it through, and it's coming back to bite them now.
Yeah, for sure. It's absolutely a problem, and I'm not naive. I don't think you can fix every single hole on your team in an off season or even in 2 off seasons. And people also have to keep in mind that every year you're plugging holes on your team, other holes open up, and you lose other players. So then all of a sudden that position, which was fine last season, now isn't fine, and you have to find someone again. So I get all of that, but it does seem like that front seven outside of Myles Garrett has been kind of a problem. Not just this year or not just last year. We got Clowney, that helped. We've made some draft picks, but not a ton of them have become huge players yet in the front seven. So that's definitely going to be an issue that we have to address in the offseason. But for now, and this is where I'll kind of jump to, the kind of the Deshaun Watson element, because I do get a little bit annoyed when I see people saying things like, oh, Deshaun Watson's not going to come in here and play defense and like all of these things. And I just think people need to remember, what has everybody said the whole time the Cleveland Browns have been back, right? It's like, it doesn't matter how good your team is if you don't have a quarterback. You get your quarterback, and then you figure everything else out. Well, we finally got our quarterback. Unless Deshaun Watson comes on the field and all of a sudden forgot how to play football in the last 2 years. Like, we got our quarterback. So now let's figure everything out. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that to say like it's a tear down, but I just mean once Deshaun gets here, we're not making the playoffs this year. So once Deshaun starts playing, unless you're Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, Amari Cooper, like there's a very select list of players that are going to be here next year. Outside of that, it's an audition for everybody else at this point. Like who wants to still be here on this team next year with Deshaun Watson? That's really what the rest of this year is going to be once Watson starts playing, in my opinion. It's almost going to be kind of like when LeBron went to the Lakers that first year. Like, who wants to play with LeBron? Let's see. He traded everybody, but for a while there, you thought maybe he'd keep some of them. I feel like that's kind of the case here with a lot of our players that aren't, already paid. It's gonna kind of just be, let's see who we got the rest of the year, and for spots that we don't have great players, we got to bring them in. That's what I feel like the rest of this year is going to be.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And then another thing. You have positions that you thought were solidified, but now we're looking a lot weaker, and you need to address them. Like Jedrick Wills, he started off rough, played well, and then people were saying that he played terrible yesterday again. Would you really want to extend him and give him, a big contract? I don't know. I'm on the fence about that. Another guy, Jack Conklin, who, when he's healthy, is a solid right tackle, but that's the problem. He's always banged up, it seems like. And again, he's not he's not as young as Jedrick Wills or anything like that. So I think he's around 29 or 30, so you really want to give him a big contract as well. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's just one of the most disappointing things. Again, is just like I think unfortunately we're not as close as we thought we were, and like you said, it's pretty much an audition as outside of, you know, obviously Watson, Chubb. I think Njoku is safe. Cooper is safe. Um, Teller Batonio. Pochik has even played good at center in place of Nick Harris. Obviously, Miles Garrett, JOK, Denzel, obviously, even though I don't know what the hell's
I
happened
mean,
to him
even
this
yeah,
year. He's
even Denzel. I know we just paid him, and it'd probably be a hard contract to move. But I think we even got to look at that because like he's never on the field, and when he is, sometimes he has a great game, shuts people down, but it's not even close to every game. He's not dependable. So
uh,
I don't know how we move that contract, even if we wanted to. So we might just be stuck with it at least for another year. But I don't even think he's guaranteed at this point.
yeah. Um,
I am a little bit more of a offensive line apologist though. I feel like for our team because I mean, you look at the stats and like, you know, Brissett's been sacked 19 times, which is dead middle of the league when it comes to quarterback sacks. And in my opinion, Brissett holds onto the ball way too long. So, like, a lot of those sacks, I wouldn't even blame on our offensive line. We also don't seem to get a lot of holding penalties. I mean, we do get holding penalties, every team does, but we don't seem to have much of a problem there. And then you don't even really have to defend much when it comes to run blocking. We know we're excellent at run blocking. So, offensive line, always look to make improvements, but I'm not going to like be losing sleep at night over our offensive line. That's just me. Now, health obviously is always a factor with every player, like you said, so that always factors into it for sure. And like I said, make upgrades if you can. But I mean, I would I'm not going to sit here and say the offense is good to go, but like I feel like the defense needs to be your front and center priority. Unless Watson comes in and you see huge problems with this offense, in theory he should be able to come in and then it's like boom, and then you should be set for the most part. I'm going to be shocked if our offense doesn't take a jump, the last month of the regular season.
yeah, I think I agree with that, and obviously besides um, Cooper and DPJ and Njoku. I think you can obviously always add depth at the wide receiver position. I think that should be addressed, through the draft and whatnot. Um, and I think having even guys that aren't, elite wide receivers, having a franchise quarterback is going to make them better. Obviously, they're going to take advantage of that. They're going to, elevate those guys. Um, Offensive line, I agree. Um, I would be I would much rather bring back Wills than Conklin, only because I think Wills has played like a solid left tackle at times. And again, just with Conklin, with his age and his injury history, and you have a guy like James Hudson who's had to move around a little bit, maybe try to throw him out there. And obviously just add more depth in the draft. Obviously, of course, you can never have as many offensive linemen as you need. So, um, yeah, offensively, I think Deshaun Watson fixes a lot of these problems. Defensively, I completely agree with you. It's just outside of a couple of guys, um, I would even say I would say JOK is much more secure than a guy like Denzel Ward. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, I think yes, he's been hampered by the groin injury, but I mean, it just like I don't know, especially with Denzel with the money he's making, he doesn't play on the level of, a Jalen Ramsey or Darius Slay or like one of these elite cornerbacks like he should be. At times, he does. It seems like at times he has, and at times he's been okay. But this year, it's been like few and far between where he's looked actually like elite, and it's just been mostly bad, which is really concerning. And Greg Newsome is another guy I think is good. Again, had a little bit of injury history, as well, but I think he's solid. And then Miles Garrett, of course. Um, but yeah, besides that, it's like, Grant Delpit. On paper he has all the tools to be an elite safety, but he seems to be always the guy giving up big plays. John Johnson has been a total miss in free agency. It's a free agent signing. Ronnie Harrison, I don't even see him on the field ever. And a couple years ago, I think it was during the playoff year. He was looking like a real, a guy that can really lay the wood out there and really, make some plays. He's fallen off. Um, Again, Clowney's older. He only came back to play with Deshaun Watson anyway, so I mean, he's probably gone after this year. Linebacker is thin. Taki plays his ass off, but he's not a starter in this league. I'm sorry. He's a great special teams guy, maybe a good rotational linebacker, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, it's really just disheartening how much work this defense really needs. When we were thinking, oh, we just need maybe a couple more pieces, and this could be an elite defense, but it's turned out to be just the opposite, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I can really add much more than what you just laid out there. The one thing I'll say is I think Denzel Ward suffers from when we got him, we expected him to be that A plus defensive anchor in the secondary, the Jalen Ramsey, like you said. And I think unfortunately, at least so far in his career, he's just been kind of like that B to maybe a B plus on a good day. He's worth keeping. It's a position you're probably going to overpay for to keep him on your team, and that's what we did. But he's good enough to start on basically any team in the NFL, but he's not going to be, the Jalen Ramsey, or he's not going to be, that elite corner, at least as of yet. Maybe he can become that, but not as of yet, and I think that is a little bit disappointing. We expected him to kind of be like the next Joe Hayden in Joe Hayden's prime, right, in those years with the Browns, so he just hasn't really gotten there. But he's still good. Like, I don't want to shit on him as if he's like, we've had other plenty of bad corners come through here in the last 5-6 years. So he's better than all of them. But yeah, that is a little bit disappointing. Anything else you want to say on this game specifically before we move on?
No, I'm ready to look past this game.
All right. So coming up, if there was any opponent that would be the opponent you don't want to play after this, I think it would be the Bills. And that's who we're playing this week, Sunday, in Buffalo. I was trying to look and see what the weather was supposed to be like. I don't have it in front of me, but I know it was snowing in their last game when they faced the Vikings, and probably the game of the year so far. It was insane. I don't know if you caught the ending of that one, but the how the Vikings pulled that out is nuts. So you said it before we started recording, but the Bills are definitely going to be angry going into this game. Josh Allen, who up until the last couple of weeks he's had some struggles throwing interceptions, but before that he was a big MVP candidate. People have said he's kind of fallen out of the conversation, so he might have something to prove as well. And he's just, even without that narrative, been one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. They also have Stephon Diggs, all the players that they have in Buffalo offensively to be one of the best offenses in the league. So this was the game when we did our season preview. I said, if there's any game I expect us to lose this year, it's this one. I just don't see. We could be coming in here 6-3 instead of 3-6. I wouldn't see how the Browns would have a chance in this. Well, that's a lie. Maybe I would have been a bit more confident. I'd be a little bit more confident. But with the cards the way they've been dealt, I don't see how we win this one unless something, if the coach forgets his playbook at home. Like, I don't know what could happen to the Bills that would make them lose this game to us. I think if they lost to us, it would probably be their worst loss of the year, for sure. I have to go look at who they lost to, but that loss to the Vikings was brutal. But the Vikings are 8-1; they're not a scrub team this year. So, yeah, what do you think about it?
Well, I'm actually shocked that the Vikings are 8-1. I don't know. I keep remembering they have Kirk Cousins. I'm like, oh, they're probably like 500 or something. But no, they only lost once. I can't remember who they lost to, but yeah, they're playing out of their minds this year. And it looks like for Buffalo, pretty much from like Thursday to Sunday, that's going to be snow. And the high on Sunday is 50% chance of snow and 31 degrees. So,
Ooh,
I mean, I think regardless of the weather, I mean, they're just going to have everything going in their favor. I think, like I said, they're going to be pissed off that they were able to drop that game to the Vikings. Fumbling on the 1 yard line, just and having them recover for a touchdown. That's a Browns loss if I've ever seen it. I don't think we've ever been able to do that, knock on wood, but that just reminded me of just so many losses that are just, literally just gone, fumbled out of our hands, so over the years. It was so crazy, but yeah, this game, this is a game, honestly, yeah, if it gets ugly early, which I kind of expected to, yeah, podcast be damned. I'm turning the fucking game off, and I'll watch the highlights. I'll look at the box score because, we've seen if it's a close game, the guys are in it. But if it gets, 2-score game, 3-score game, this defense and this team in general is just going to fold and pack up and go home. So I think if Buffalo gets on a roll, I think it's just going to get ugly fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a game where, first of all, I'll be rooting for it to be cold as hell and snowing, because anything to throttle the Bills' offense. I mean, our offense is already, throttled by just being our offense. But if we can throttle the Bills' offense, I think the weather would have more of an effect on them than it would on us. And also, their leading rusher so far is Josh Allen. So that's pretty hilarious. None of their running backs have broken 500 yards. Something to look out for in this game: if Nick Chubb has a pretty good game, he only needs 96 yards to break 1,000 yards for the year. So that'll be something to definitely look out for. I'm sure if it happens, the commentators will bring that up once he gets close to it. So let's hope that happens in this game, even if it ends up being a loss. It'll be a good celebration for him. And only 10 games it would be into the season, he gets 1,000 yards. That's averaging 100 a game. He could end up with over 1,500 yards by the end of this season. So it could be an excellent year for him. Hopefully that continues. Beyond that, I don't really have much to look forward to in this game. It'd be cool to see Myles Garrett hit Josh Allen a bunch of times. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but beyond that, yeah, I just hope we keep it interesting. Like, I really don't even know what to say. That's why we're doing one episode this week. We really don't have much analysis here, because it's like, how do you even positively go into this one as a Browns fan, other than just like the utter sheer I'm a fan of the Browns ignorance? Or not just the Browns, it could be any team, right? Like, when you're a fan of the team, you go and believe and you're going to win every game. Besides that, though, looking at it realistically, there's nothing to really look forward to.
Yeah, I guess it's not a bright spot. There's no bright spots in this game, but I mean, at least you won't have to see the Browns just get run all over. Because like you said, Josh Allen's their leading rusher, and I think...
Watch him do it though with Singletary. Watch him run all over us.
Yeah, that's true with Singletary and stuff. I mean, I don't know. But they won't need to. I mean, they have Stephon Diggs, which, I mean, we can triple cover him. We'll just still leave him wide open somehow. Again, I hope. I don't know what I hope for this game. I just keep it close. Just don't get embarrassed. I mean, it might just be on the flip side, like you said, like the too optimistic Browns fan who's like, nah, man, like we could beat the Bills. Like I try to be a little more realistic, but with a dash of pessimism, just for being a Browns fan. But I just have nothing to look forward to in this game. I mean, I expect our first drive to probably be decent. We'll feed Nick Chubb the ball. We'll complete some passes, might even score a touchdown, and then the game will just go downhill from there. And again, I mean, I know the Miami game got ugly really in the second half. By halftime, it was, you're down by 10 points. I mean, it wasn't a crazy lead, but I mean, my God, what'd you give Kareem Hunt last week? Like 6 carries or something like that? Like, okay, the trade they done is his past. He's not going to get hurt and like not be a trade commodity. He's gone after this year. You might as well just start splitting the carries. Give him more carries. I mean, obviously, if you want to preserve Nick Chubb because he's still your running back for the future, but Kareem Hunt is done. I mean, it's basically like a prison sentence. He's just counting down the days until he can go to free agency. So you might as well just use him and get him involved in the passing game, for God's sakes. I mean, we can't seem to stop screenplays and on defense, but we just never run them for whatever reason. If we do, it's to fucking Harrison Bryant or something stupid. So this game is just going to be a mess, I think. Again, unless it's a blizzard, then I think that could be the great equalizer in this game. But again, if it's ugly early, I'm turning this off. I have no, I'm not embarrassed to say that. It's just why am I going to put myself through that? The Browns already just make my Sundays just miserable. They put me in a bad mood anyways. So why would I sit through the rest of the game?
Yeah, well, this is probably the lowest morale we've been all season. If things go the way we think they will, then we might even be even lower morale next week, even though we're kind of expecting it. We don't have the false facade of the bye week after beating the Bengals. So I don't know. We'll see. I think that, this past Sunday, though, is when it really hit me of like, oh, wow, like in 3 weeks, it's basically going to be a brand new season for us. Like, it's going to be a reset, I don't think there's really any other team in the league that's in the Browns' position in that way, even though we don't really have any postseason aspirations at this point. Just like knowing that you're about to have a quarterback, I think he started practicing this week, if I'm correct. So the fact that you're going to be having a quarterback who, again, unless the dude forgot how to play football or every single analyst in the world is incorrect, this guy is going to be our franchise quarterback for the next at least 5 years, and that's a very conservative estimate of how long he'd be our quarterback. So that's pretty cool to think. Like, you're just 2 games away. They might be 2 terrible games, but you're just 2 games away from that, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, and yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah, and again, yeah, he's not going to solve all the issues, but I mean, I think the team in general will play somewhat better, at least on the offensive side. I think it'll be a lot more smooth. Um, but yeah, again, I expect him to struggle too. I don't think he's going to come back and be the Deshaun Watson of old. Um, because it's not just a year. He was out of the league 2 years, so that's a long time to not be hit and not get your bearings back to where they were before that. So you can't hang your head on that, but it is something to look forward to, at least from the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, it's just some of these games are going to be rough. And we were talking about it before. I mean, the Bucks game, they haven't been overly impressive this year, but I mean, I still think that's a game that we could either hang with them and be close and then just end up losing the game, or we could just come out there, lay an egg, and get blown out. I mean, a lot of these games, the Saints have been decent this year. It's going to be a later game this year. Maybe the weather might affect that, but that's going to be a tough game. Um, and then the 2 division games, I mean, I think Pittsburgh, yeah, that'll be a given. I mean, Josh Dobbs might be even playing in that game. I think it just got flexed to Wednesday, like during the week, I think. So that's
Really?
going to be a very odd game. I think so. Thought I saw it got flexed to something.
Because of
Oh no, never mind. Never mind.
fake
It was
account?
one of those. Yeah, it was one of those joke
Dude,
accounts.
don't even get me started, man. With the Twitter blue thing now, I can't even tell
Oh my
anymore. I
god.
don't know who. I'm not gonna get into all that, but it's like I don't even know. I saw someone tweet something crazy and they were verified, and I'm like, I can't even follow like Adam Schefter anymore. You know what I mean? It's like I got to get my
Right.
news somewhere else at this point because yeah, I've been drinking a couple things like that too.
Oh god. Yeah. It wasn't. There's that one. It's called like Ballsack Sports or something like that. It wasn't one of those accounts, but it was some guy who tweeted it. I'm like, oh, I just saw like, oh, it got flexed. I'm like, oh, that's fucking weird. It's the last game of the season. Maybe it just happened for some reason, but never mind. I mean, that game's going to be a complete mess either way. Um, but yeah, just these games coming up, even the ones that seem like we should win, I just have no confidence in. So I really just don't know what to expect out of this team the rest of the way out. Even besides this game too.
All right, well, if you're a Browns fan out there, do you think we're wrong? Are you super confident in the Browns this game? If so, let us know in the comments, or do you think they're going to get destroyed? Either way, let us know. And whether you're listening on a podcast platform or watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe so you can catch all of our episodes and listen to all of our coverage here of the Browns this season on Hot Takes on the Lake.
Yeah, and if you are confident in this game against the Bills, I would love to try the drugs that you're clearing on. I would love to have that, much positive, perspective in my life. Um, but yes, we will be trying to live stream the game. Probably Deshaun Watson, his game in Houston. That's the game we're aiming to do. That'll be a big game. But yeah, until then, enjoy the game. Follow us on all the social medias at Hot Takes on the Lake or on Twitter at Hot Takes 216. Have a good week and just try to enjoy the game this weekend. And we'll talk to you guys later.